ladies and gentlemen, and all participants. Although it's small size of the participant, but I saw representative from Indonesia, Malaysia, Colombia, Ecuador, I saw India, and Thailand by names. Welcome to the first webinar, Global Framework for Sustainable Palm Oil, held by CPOPC, the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, 14 February 2022 at 10 p.m. Jakarta time. For your information, CPOPC developed a global framework of principle for sustainable palm oil. This framework aims to create a common language across the different certification schemes being applied to palm oil production anchored in UN SDG at the space. This framework can be subsequently used to value the contribution of palm oil toward achieving sustainable development in all producing countries and shall lay the foundation for the establishment of sustainable oil platform. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wicaksono Dharma Sarkoro. I will be your moderator throughout this webinar. I'm supported by our technical teams, Ms. Weni, Ms. Mala, and Ms. Tinka. And before the start, please kindly mute your microphone, especially when speakers are presenting. And please also use chat facility to raise your question. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, actually we have two webinars. The first webinar this morning is to socialize global framework for sustainable palm oil to members and incoming members of CPOPC and all of the stakeholders. Then we will have the second webinar on March. That's for broader audience and international-wide stakeholders. Today, for open remarks, we will have the Executive Director of CPOPC, Tan Sri Dr. Yusuf Basirun, the Deputy Minister for Food and Agribusiness, Honorable Madam Dr. Musdalifah Mahmud, and the Secretary General of MPIC, Honorable Yang Berbahagia Dato' Ravi Mutayah. Then we have photo session after that for just 2 minutes. Shortly mentioned, the presenters are Mr. Ziv Rigowski, that's expert in sustainability, Dr. Hidrajat Natawijaya, coordinating team, Mspo, and then Mr. Simon Selvarts from MPOCC. I think it's time to us to start the webinar. I would like to invite Tan Sri Dr. Yusuf Basirun, the Executive Director of CPOPC, for his opening remarks. Welcome, Tan Sri Yusuf. Time is yours.
Good day, selamat pagi, and on behalf of the organizer, CPOPC or Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, I welcome you to today's special webinar titled Global Framework for Sustainable Palm Oil. First, I would like to extend my regards to our distinguished guest for today's session, Honorable Madam Dr. Musdalifah Mahmud, Deputy Minister of Food and Agribusiness, Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs, Republic of Indonesia, and Honorable Yang Berbahagia Dato' Ravi Mutayah, Secretary General, Ministry of Plantation Industries and Commodities, Malaysia. Next, greetings to our valuable experts and speakers, Honorable Dr. Hidrajat Natawijaya, Mr. Simon Selvarts, and Ziv Rigowski. To all participants who are joining us this morning, I would like to thank you all for your kind presence. Today's webinar is the first of this two-series session, and the purpose of today's session is to introduce the global framework for sustainable palm oil and present its next steps to the public. Today's session serves as a preparation towards having the GFP SPO presented to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum in July 2022. I would like to take a moment to say that we are very proud of the achievements of palm oil so far. Of the 17 goals set by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or UN SDGs, palm oil has contributed significantly to 13 of these goals. Some of the achieved goals that contribute towards sustainability includes SDG number 1, no poverty, SDG number 2, zero hunger, SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG number 13, I think, sustainable production and consumption. As you all already know by now, palm oil has been continuously vilified and has been the object of negative campaigns, particularly in the European Union. Accusations such as allegation of deforestation and excessive use of land have unfortunately contributed to shedding negative lights on palm oil. How can palm oil be perceived as unsustainable when it is only using 0.3% of global agricultural land and yields so high, unlike other vegetable oils such as rapeseed and soya, making it an efficient vegetable oil? Now we have the global framework for sustainable palm oil offered for adoption globally, and if adopted, it can prove that such allegations against palm oil are untrue. Therefore, today is the day where we applaud the achievement of sustainable palm oil. CPOPC believes that palm oil is a sustainable alternative to other vegetable oils such as soya, rapeseed, and sunflower across all the 3 SDG focus areas, which are social, economic, and environmental. And therefore, it is only fair to hope that the GFP will be used as a reference because its principle will draw and expand on current sustainable palm oil certification schemes, such as the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil, or ISPO for Indonesia, and Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Scheme, or Mspo for Malaysia, and provide guidance for future ones, as well as for other vegetable oils for adoption. Before I end my remarks, it is my hope that everyone here will support the global framework for sustainable palm oil towards the achievements of the SDGs. I hope you will make use of this valuable time to learn from our sustainability experts as they share their knowledge about the GFP SPO. Lastly, I wish you all a fruitful session and sincerely hope that each and every one of you will learn some important insights on sustainable palm oil. I hope to see you again at the next session. An invitation will be circulated by the CPOPC Secretariat in due time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Back to you, Pak Wijaya.
Thank you, Tan Sri Yusuf, for your remarks to highlight the importance of the webinar. I feel that it's a great pleasure to invite Honorable Madam Dr. Musdalifah Mahfud, the Deputy Minister for Food and Agribusiness, Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs, Republic of Indonesia, for her opening remarks. Madam, Ibu Musdalifah, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Wijaya. Good morning to all of you from Jakarta, Indonesia. First, I would like to extend my greetings to my fellow SOM leader yang berbahagia, Datuk Raffi Mutaya, Secretary General of the Ministry of Plantation Indonesia and Communities Malaysia, and also my good friend, His Excellency Ambassador Colombia for Indonesia, Juan Camilo Valencia, and Tan Sri Dr. Yusuf Bashiron, Executive Director of the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, to all speakers, Prof. Bapak Dr. Hedrajat Natawijaya from Indonesia Mspo Secretariat, Bapak Mr. Simon Selvarat from Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, and Mr. Zik Ragoski, Sustainable Consultant. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to give these opening remarks as this webinar on Global Principle for Sustainable Palm Oil, or we call GFP SPO, organized by the CPOPC. This webinar meets one of the 7 objectives of CPOPC, which is to strengthen cooperation and collaboration among other palm oil producing countries. At today's webinar, all the palm oil producing countries, including CPOPC observers countries, are invited to meet under one collaborative platform to inform and update the global framework principles of sustainable palm oil. As global demand for edible oil keeps growing and is used in almost everything human needs, palm oil is now the most consumed vegetable oil globally. CPOPC developed a framework that can be subsequently used to value the contribution of palm oil toward achieving sustainable development in all producing countries. I am pleased to welcome the completion of the CPOPC Global Framework of Principles of Sustainable Palm Oil. This framework will be useful for developing global sustainability references on palm oil, as well as highlights the leadership of palm oil in ensuring the sustainability of all vegetable oils. Today's discussion is to inform the gist of the GFP SPO, including the way forward and garner in-house supports. We appreciate that CPOPC, who has taken follow-up steps to disseminate the framework content to stakeholders of palm oil producing countries, stakeholders of other vegetable oils, and other international partners or organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, we need to be constantly vigilant on the global vegetable oils market developments. Palm oil is an important vegetable oil needed to address the global demand. With global demand for vegetable oils increasing, producers' oil should respond by offering more sustainable vegetable oil sources and supporting a solid framework to promote sustainability. CPOPC has initiated the Global Framework of Principles for Sustainable Palm Oil, or GFP. This framework aims to create a common language across the different certification schemes being applied to palm oil production, ensured in the UN SDGs as its base. Palm oil producing countries have adopted several sustainability certification standards, and this framework includes the Mspo, Mspo, and SPO. In collaboration and support of the current certification schemes, the GFP SPO can provide a common language across systems and benchmarks. It is worth noting that this framework is voluntary and is not intended to be a new palm oil certification schemes, but rather a critical reference applicable to the existing and future schemes. There are 7 sustainability principles compiled in the GFP SPO, and the principles are as follows. First, develop partnership for sustainable development through transparency and collaboration, including the potential of expansion of this framework to other vegetable oils. The second, uphold peace, justice, and strong institutions through compliance with laws and regulations. And third, invest in innovation and technology to drive the adoption of efficient and best management practices. Fourth, minimize the net impact on the environment and ecosystems through the efficient use of scarce natural resources. 12, benefit workers and local communities by improving their living conditions and respecting their rights. And 6, inclusiveness for smallholders and low-income consumers. And 7, commitment to continuous improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, now that we have the global framework principle on sustainable palm oil, CPOPC has to provide the necessary step taken sooner to deliberate this framework with relevant international partners, especially the UN system, to have realized our common vision to develop one standard of sustainability for all edible oils. There should be a bridge for the following steps to be brought up to the UN and to other producing countries as best to develop a global standard. Once we agree and engage with the UN on this GFP SPO, we expect to broaden our reach to other vegetable oils. This effort has to be in tandem with our priorities for growing acceptance of palm oil sustainability and our national certification schemes. However, let us not forget that international partners, including producers of other major vegetable oils, should be part of the strategy and the ultimate objective. I have highlighted some perspectives that may be of interest for this webinar to discuss as part of our effort to make our approaches more coherent, coordinated, and effective in leading this precious industry. I hope that the participants will take the opportunity to engage the expert of the panel discussion. We welcome any advice and recommendation that could collaborate and undertake adequate measures to sustain the bullish price of palm oil. Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding, I would like to thank to our speakers, the distinguished guests, and participants for attending this webinar. My sincere thanks also to the CPOPC Secretariat for arranging this event. And lastly, I truly hope that today's webinar can facilitate fruitful discussion, inspire all participants to believe that the palm oil industry is here to stay sustainably and remuneratively in 2020 and for many years to come. And also, more and more people around the globe now see CPOPC as a reputable international organization in promoting palm oil. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ibu Musdalifah, for your opening remarks, as well as the direction for us representing government of Indonesia in CPOPC. Well, participants, we also have a good time to invite Honorable yang berbahagia Dato' Ravi Mutayah, the Secretary General Ministry of Plantation Industries and Commodities, MPIC Malaysia, for his opening remarks. Sir, time is yours.
Yeah, very good morning and greetings from Malaysia. The Honorable Madam Dr. Muzalifah Mahmud, the Deputy Minister of Food and Agribusiness, Minister of Economy Affairs Indonesia. It's nice to see all of you once again. Ambassador of Colombia, Mr. Juan Valencia Gonzalez, and also I'd like to welcome the delegations or participants from all the participating member countries, and also a very good morning to Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dato' Dr. Yusuf Basiron, the Executive Director, or rather we should be calling him now as Secretary General of CPOPC, and also members of the CPOPC Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure today to co-deliver the opening remarks at our first webinar of Global Framework Principles for Sustainable Palm Oil, GFP SPO. The webinar definitely clearly indicates the importance of ensuring a global framework on sustainability, which will also serve, hopefully, as a guide to all other member countries and palm oil producing countries. There can be no doubt that as we work towards addressing some of our conventional or current issues on research, productivity, and marketability, we are also facing pressing and new emerging challenges related to sustainability, particularly on areas such as in environment, in social, and even development management. The webinar today provides an opportunity to share our views, ideas, and experiences on some of these critical areas. Hopefully, it also serves as an avenue for us to explore and define practical ways and solutions in an integrated and holistic manner. Ladies and gentlemen, as the global demand for vegetable oil increases, CPOPC, I'm glad to know that CPOPC has taken a proactive step to come out or to formulate a global framework of principles of sustainable palm oil. And this set of principles draw guidance or is benchmark from existing certification schemes, particularly from Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil and Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil, ISPO, and on which, whereby this will assist other producing countries to come up with similar sustainability principles tailored according to their own country's requirement. This framework is intended for CPOPC member countries or future members and other palm oil producing countries to adopt the principle related to sustainability. In addition, this framework also focuses on assisting smallholders as well as on their welfare as well. As mentioned by Ibu Musdalifah, this framework is established with 7 principles which are aligned to all the sustainable development goals. So I will not repeat here. We will not repeat it here. And I think it is timely that our certification or the global framework aligns with these our sustainable development goals to show that we are in support of the Sustainable Development United Nations agenda. And I'm glad that the framework encompasses all the sustainable development goals, which is something that we should be proud of. Hence, GFP SPO is important in ensuring the palm oil are able to meet the world demand in a sustainable and productive way by adhering to the SDG principles. The principles are global nature and universally applicable, taking into account different national realities and levels of development. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Plantation Industry and Commodities through Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council is committed in bringing the sustainable agenda to the highest level through CPOPC. With the GFP SPO, I believe that palm oil will set the benchmark for vegetable oils to be produced sustainability, and eventually our standards will be recognized by the world markets. We have ahead of us a very challenging and ambitious agenda. However, I'm confident that through this kind of webinar, we can play a key part and contribute to the discussions, particularly on sustainable issues. I welcome your active participation and inputs, which will form the basis for our discussion, and hopefully we will be able to come out with a successful outcome. To conclude my opening remarks, I wish to offer my sincere thanks and appreciation to the Secretariat, and also not forgetting our speakers. They've spent a lot of time preparing to deliver the presentation. And to all of you for attending this webinar, I wish you all a fruitful deliberation, and hopefully with this knowledge, you'll be able to assist and promote that our crop palm oil is produced on a sustainable manner. Let us harness this opportunity to further enhance our collective efforts for global sustainably produced palm oil. With that, thank you, and I hope that this webinar will not be just the first and the last, but I'm sure be more of such webinars be held to promote this global framework of principles for sustainable palm oil. With that, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dato' Davi Mutaya, for your opening remarks and support representing the government of Malaysia in CPOPC. Secretariat, I think now it's time to us to have a photo session. You will take photo just for 2 minutes. So please turn your screen on, everybody. And of course, your smile wide open, please. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering the presentation session. We have 3 presentations. So the first one is Mr. Ziv Rakowski. Please, Secretariat, appear the, yes. Mr. Ziv Rakowski is an MBA from INSET. He is a consultant in field of sustainability and an agricultural technology enthusiast. Some of his works, consultant in McKinsey & Co., CEO in Maha Microfinance for Agriculture, Myanmar, board member of Blue Number, and focus with Government of Indonesia, Bappenas, on agricultural innovation in palm oil, and also working with various organizations on sustainability. He will be presenting the concept of global framework of principles for sustainable palm oil and the next plan. Mr. Ziv, you have 20 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, all distinguished gentlemen and ladies, in particular, Dr. Yusuf Basirun, Ibu Mustalifa, and others as well, for attending today's session. Let me share my screen and share with you a bit of the content of the global framework. So the global framework principles for palm oil sustainability was originated with CPOPC, and I want to thank also for the great collaboration with Pak Dupito, Pak Wicak, Ibu Mala and team as well for creating this document. The reason essentially to us starting in this effort, as was mentioned before by the distinguished speakers before me, is the fact that global demand for vegetable oils is continuing to grow. And as we know very well in this meeting, it is very much of an imperative that palm oil continues to be the leading form of vegetable oil, as it is the most productive. As such, the idea is that, as also was mentioned by Ibu Mustalifa and others, and Dr. Yusuf Basirun, is the fact that unfortunately at times palm oil is being specifically under attack by different kinds of stakeholders. And so it is important to have the right level of discussion that is both backed by the right set of principles and by the right set of data in order to have this discussion going forward. The importance of palm oil for developing countries specifically cannot be understated. It is a significant economic prime mover that supports agribusiness. It allows for a significant growth of jobs and generates a great deal of national revenues. One of the key elements for palm oil that makes it so, compared to other agricultural products as well, is, as we know, palm oil requires processing specifically within country. And that processing specifically within country is some of the key elements that drive economic development for developing countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Colombia, Honduras, and other countries that are engaging in the growth of palm oil. Often when we speak with the processing companies in these various countries, what they feel is, when we actually discuss their commitment to national development, is that often their contributions in terms of infrastructure, whether it's roads or hospitals or schools, are not being evaluated as part of the contribution of the industry. And that is an important element to remember and know. What we also know is for palm oil specifically, even more so than some of the other vegetable oils, there are significant and robust certification schemes. So Mspo, ISPO, RSPO, ISCC, and others are all looking to provide a framework in order to certify and ensure that palm oil is sustainable. What is missing at times from the discourse is the common language across these elements, not as a way of replacing them, but as a way to ensure that whether we are discussing on Mspo, ISPO, RSPO, we are able to have a common language. This should form the basis to a discussion beyond palm oil as well, as we will see later. In addition, what is important when we create this common language is to focus on both, as we heard earlier, on the environmental sustainability, as well as the social sustainability, as well as the benefits that palm oil provides. Therefore, the GFP SPO is used to provide a common language across these systems, and specifically highlighting the importance of palm oil as a driver of the national development that we've seen before, and as a way to provide better calorie intake of vegetable oils across the world. To this end, as the second framework, in addition to the certification scheme that was then used as a basis for the GFP SPO, is, as was mentioned earlier, the Global Goals for Sustainable Development. The importance of these goals is that they are already a common language, and they allow us to expand the conversation across certification scheme to something that, as we mentioned earlier as well, the United Nations understands, and we can have a positive discussion across various countries, across various types of vegetable oils, and as an ability to drive the industry plus sustainability forward. The idea that from CPOPC's perspective, palm oil should be at the forefront of this discussion, as we mentioned earlier as well, in achieving these SDGs. And as such, the idea that it can form a basis for all types of vegetable oils to engage with the SDGs and to evaluate and improve ways by which we can drive towards the SDGs to achieve in an even better way. As such, when we looked at creating these principles, the ideas, there are a set of things that CPOPC as guided, plus as we receive guidance from various different other stakeholders as well, in order to make sure that this global framework on sustainability is robust. Firstly, it is the idea that we want to look forward, not as a new certification scheme, but as a common language, but we all can talk better together. Secondly, the idea of establishing a set of common denominators across all certification schemes to, again, make them stronger and connect those to each other. Thirdly, focusing on the idea of a productive partnership and not discriminating against palm oil only. The idea that if we can all work together towards better sustainable outcome, it will benefit everybody, and palm oil ultimately can emerge as the right driver of development that is necessary for it to be. Then we look for identification of actionable ways in which the whole industry and producers and consumers can improve productive sustainability. As we will see a bit later, oftentimes the burden of sustainability unfortunately falls on the producers, where the consumers at times achieve much higher element of the profit from the industry itself. And that creates a situation where it is very difficult for the producer countries, and specifically a lot of the producer stakeholders, such as smallholder farmers, to become more sustainable. And this is part of the actionable ways that we need to develop to help them achieve those. Then ensuring that opportunities for improvement are identified. So then we're able to create the right mechanisms and systems and plans and do the work to actually achieve the goals that we want. And at the end of all of it, we are wrapping this as a set of, these are the principles and approaches. There are no actions being created based on this, this initial document. The idea is to provide a discussion point for us to discuss as countries producing palm oil, to us to discuss with our stakeholders, to us to discuss with the United Nations as a way to move forward. The idea, again, is to create a very positive discourse that avoids a lot of the difficulties and friction of pitting one stakeholder against another. So what is these principles? As Ibu Mustalifa kindly mentioned earlier, there are 7 of them, and these are the 7. One is developing partnership for sustainable development through transparency and collaboration that include other vegetable oils. This is important, as often the producers of palm oil feel a bit victimized by the idea that palm oil is seen as the source of all evil as such, even though as Dr. Yusuf Basir mentioned earlier, it is actually a very small amount of the land use is for palm oil. Therefore, the idea of developing the transparency and collaboration becomes important. And furthermore, the idea of actually including this framework as a common language, not only within the palm oil industry, but also beyond across other vegetable oils as well. Secondly, upholding the peace, justice, and strong institutions through compliance with laws and regulations. And the importance here is encouraging and recognizing the sovereignty of the countries that are producing the palm oil as a way to support these institutions, as opposed to creating institutions outside these producing countries to mandate these discussions. Thirdly, investing in innovation and technology to drive the adoption of efficient and best management practices. Throughout the work on this piece, it is clear that as palm oil is in a lot of countries are now being is finishing its cycle, meaning that the 25, 27 years of a tree has come to an end, and therefore there is a need to replant. There is a lot of new technologies that did not exist in the last 27 years that can ensure that the outcome of palm oil is a lot more sustainable, productive, and can deliver a lot more value than it did before. And we need to make sure that we consider these new technologies and approaches to drive the discussion forward. Fourth, minimizing net impact to the environment and ecosystem through efficient use of natural resources, which can better be done with the innovation and technology, but it's important to ensure and emphasize on. 5, benefiting the workers and local communities by improving the living conditions and respecting their rights. This is important on multiple levels. 1, as we'll see a bit later, current share of smallholders and local communities in terms of the profit of palm oil is not so significant. And the ability to, on the other hand, support these communities by the building of schools and hospitals and others, such as the producing companies are doing, is quite important. 6, inclusiveness for smallholders and low-income consumers. As we know, it is quite difficult for smallholders to benefit from certification schemes, and we need to think about how we include them into this process, in addition to providing them additional benefit as such. And 7, of course, commitment to continuous improvement, because we know very well that this work just starts today. It doesn't end. Ultimately, we would also like to note that this framework follows the principles that was started by CPOPC in 2015. And again, it builds on an existing amazing knowledge, set of knowledge and work. In addition to the principles that are highlighted in the main document, there has been work also on 9 different annexes that are important. Some of this we will touch on in the next few pages, and others you can, you can go through as well as you go through this document, but are super important as well. The first annex is the comparison of this framework and how it aligns with to existing certification schemes. As was emphasized, and I will emphasize again, the global framework on sustainability does not assume to create a new certification scheme, but in fact, it assumes to gather the best and create the connections across certification scheme towards the definition of this local, of this common language. In the next slide, we'll talk about what are some of the principles within the certification schemes and how they fit in comprehensively into the global framework on sustainability certification scheme. The second annex focuses on the SDG deep dive, where we do try to ensure that palm oil can touch in a very positive way on each one of the 17 different SDG goals. And that is important because we believe that palm oil has the ability to do so and has and in fact is part of the SDG process. And as such, it forms such a core element of this discussion that we wanted to evaluate and show how those pieces connect. Thirdly, we highlight technology, which we'll discuss about a little bit later. But again, with the emphasis that with new technology, both the idea of productivity can go up, and therefore there is a reduction need for for new land to be used for palm oil. And in fact, there have been recent articles around that. And in addition, it is much easier to interface and reward smallholder farmers specifically and others for their investment into sustainability. And some of these technologies did not exist before. We then go into high-level implementation with the idea that we can actually look at using this as a discussion point with the different certification schemes, with different stakeholders. We look at what is the business model that could be used to support this, to ensure that this a system like this, once it's adopted, refined and adopted, can be used in a way that is, again, does not cause an undue burden on the producers, but allows for all stakeholders to join together towards better sustainable outcome. We then start looking at how do we extrapolate this framework into other vegetable oils, with the idea that we should all be following the same rules. We should not be subject to rules that are specific to palm oil, where other vegetable oils might be more lax, maybe in their contribution towards the SDGs. An important piece that we wanted to focus on is the idea of engaging with smallholders, as they are often overlooked in the supply chain, and specifically might not be as strong as to engage in the practices that we need them to without help from us, the rest of the stakeholders. As an 8th annex, we are looking at how do we hope to engage with the United Nations, hopefully later this year, with the idea that both because we are looking at SDGs and because we are trying to create the right set of collaborations, it will be important for us to bring this to a global forum and leverage this global level discussion in a way that will let us work together towards, towards additional improvement. And finally, we have created a template for countries looking to create their own national certification schemes as a way to support new member countries into CPOPC and others as they're thinking about Pommel. These 9 annexes are super important as a way to us to continue the discussion beyond the initial set of 7 principles. So I will not go deeply into this. A lot of the content is in the, into the document, but I do want to share a little bit. And again, with the idea that we are super excited and respecting of the various certification schemes. Part of the analysis was to show that we cover all of the principles of the various certification schemes and not add too many new things, but rather create the level of discussion across them. So as you see, all certification schemes are actually touching on at least 6, if not 7 of the different principles in ways that are making this productive and ways that are making this allow us to have the right level of discussion.
Okay, you have another 3 minutes.
Yep, I'm almost done. Thank you. So 2 more pages. So basically, on the technology, it is important to note, as we mentioned earlier, is that we are looking to do 3 different things. One is ensuring the right verification with all stakeholders, therefore engaging with smallholders and allowing them to be part of the sustainability framework. 2, the right remote of engagement and compensation. In a world where today we can both engage with farmers remotely, understand who they are, and also compensate them directly through e-wallets and mobile money, it allows for much better engagement and ensuring that these farmers have their actual benefit. And finally, as we mentioned earlier, the right modern inputs and practices allow for better productivity and therefore reduce land usage. Another thing that we quickly touched on earlier is the idea that as of right now, in terms of a business model, the consumers are actually benefiting from most of the value created by smallholders. In fact, smallholders create 6% of the value chain, but their profits, unfortunately, is normally close to zero. This is why the business model that we are proposing through the annex should better support smallholder farmers. And finally, in summary, the idea is that palm oil should be the first of many in exploring how the SDGs and how such a framework can help benefit the different kind of vegetable oils. And especially since if we can actually use palm oil and take away some of the negative images, as Dr. Yusuf Bashiron mentioned earlier, we would only require an 8% increase of land use versus today. But if we are not able to explain our position well and the market moves towards soybean, it will mean a significant or almost 50% increase in land use. And that is important. Thank you very much for your time and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Pak Zif. All participants, we will have question and answer at once after all speakers present. So now we come to the second presentation. We would like to invite Dr. Herdrajat Natawijaya, a PhD from Philippines Los Baños University. He has served for more than 35 years as a government employee at Ministry of Agriculture, Republic of Indonesia. Currently, he is an observer of National Replanting Program and Management of Farmers Coaching Compartment, Indonesian Palm Oil Association, GFP. He will be presenting such title related to Mspo. Dr. Herdrajat, you have about 7 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Datuk Rafi Mutaya, Honorable Dr. Musdalifah Mahmud, Dr. Yusuf Bashiron, the Executive Director of CPOPC, all the speakers, and ladies and gentlemen. I have 7 minutes to present. My title presentation is Global Framework Principle for Sustainability Palm Oil and Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil Certification. Through the implementation of the Indonesian Palm Oil Certification System, or ISPO, ISPO supports the implementation of the Global Framework of Principle for Sustainability Production Palm Oil that has been set by the CPOPC to cover 7 principles towards achieving the global goals. The historical development of ISPO certification, the sustainable of pine plantation have been obligated since the launch of the Indonesian Sustainable Oil Plantation in Medan in March 2011 to Agriculture Minister's Decree number 19 in year 2011. Then after 4 years implemented, ISPO was revised through Agriculture Minister's Decree number 11 in year 2015. For the second time again, after 5 years implemented, ISPO certification system has been revised through the Presidential Decree number 44 year 2020. Now ISPO system is become more improved and strengthened to be implemented. ISPO principle and criteria are based on the current regulation, obligatory for plantation company and smallholder within the next 5 years. Establishment of ISPO steering committee and ISPO committee, adoption of transparency principle. Technically, implementation of ISPO certification has been stipulated through Agriculture Minister Decree number 38 year 2020, supply chain traceability adoption, steering committee chaired by Economic Affairs Coordinating Minister, governor, region, or major act as advisor and supervision in implementation process of ISPO. ISPO certification from beginning to the end product. ISPO principle and aspect according Presidential Decree number 44 year 2020, there are 4 aspects: legal aspect, economy aspect, social and cultural aspect, and environmental aspect. 7 principles. 1 is plantation business legality. implementation of good farming practice, management of the environment, natural resource and biodiversity, employment responsibility, social responsibility and community, economic empowerment, transparency, and the 7 continuous business improvement. Principle and criteria for plantation company. There are 7 principles with total number of criteria 38 and total indicator 173. Detail of its principle and number of criteria and indicator lies in this table. SDG goal matching ISPO principle and criteria. Almost all SDG goals can meet ISPO principle and criteria except goal number 9, namely industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Goal number 14, namely life below water, and goal number 17, namely partnership for the goal. Goal number 1 of SDGs, no poverty, matches with the 3 principles and 6 criteria of ISPO. Example here, principle number 1 of ISPO, namely compliance with law and regulation, and criteria 5.1, land legality, and 5.2, namely legality of plantation business. And then goal number 4, equality of education, with match with principle number 5, social responsibility and community economic empowerment, and criteria 5.1, namely social responsibility. Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, match with 4 principle and 8 criteria of ISPO. Example here, principle number 4 of ISPO, namely labor responsibility, and criteria 4.2, fulfill administration requirement related to work relation, and criteria 4.2, employee cooperative. Goal number 15, namely life on land, met with 3 principles and 4 criteria of ISPO. Principle number 3 of ISPO, namely management of the environment, natural resource, and biodiversity, and criteria 6.7, namely protected areas and high conservation value. Since observable of oil no standard, our experience implement global principle frameworks. Sustainability palm oil can be offered as standard for other vegetable oil. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitrajat. It's, I think time is so limited to you, but actually that's good. Ladies and gentlemen, and all participants, we are now come to the last presentation. Mr. Simon Selvaraj. Currently, he is a senior manager in Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, MPOCC. He spent over than 20 years in business and operations management and marketing across the certification and audits and palm oil plantation sectors. Mr. Simon Selvaraj, you have about 7 minutes. Time is yours.
Thank you, Pak. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar of Global Framework for Sustainability of Palm Oil, GFP SPO. And a warm greeting to Honorable Yang Berbahagia Datuk Ravi Mutaya, Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Yusuf Basirun, Honorable Madam Dr. Musdalifah Mahmud, Honorable Dr. Hedrajat Natavijaja, and Mr. Zif Radosbi, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to start my speech today by congratulating CPOPC Secretariat for the efforts taken to harmonize the universal language of sustainability across the palm oil sustainable stakeholders. The global framework is indeed a good tool to be used to assess the user's current conformity against their practice. The GFP is useful in coordinating its member countries' sustainability, economic, and social development efforts under one language. This will be a good start for the member countries to adapt and be ready to face the sustainability requirements from the importing countries. Although it's meant for new users to adopt the sustainability framework, we MPOCC have worked through these efforts with CPOPC Secretariat and the member countries and contributed the ideas that can strengthen the framework while making it the least to adhere to. Having said that, I must also stress that the Mspo standard with the revised version address almost all the relevant elements such as environmental, ACV, social, and GHG. So the major changes made to the current Mspo standards, we have reduced the principle from 7 to 5, which we have incorporated and combined certain elements into these 5 principles. And yeah, of course, and these principles remains as 5 to management commitment and responsibility, transparency, compliance with legal and other requirements, responsibility to social, health, safety, and employment conditions, and environment, natural resources, biodiversity, and eco system service. So this has elevated the bar of the revised standard to greater coverage of the sustainability requirements. Now, on behalf of MPOCC, I can confirm that the final version has been approved and we will be launching it in due course of time. At the same time, I would like to take this opportunity to further reiterate that it is highly important to direct any business practices towards sustainability and what more to say when it comes to crops that are categorized as a commodity. With the global demand for vegetable oils increasing, the new palm oil producing countries will need to kickstart from scratch, and it will be much easier to meet such demand by adopting the sustainability requirements globally through this framework. Once again, I would like to applaud the CPOPC Secretariat for thinking ahead and including the SDGs in the framework. Therefore, SDGs form the base for the GFP SPO, which can be measured holistically against those SDGs systematically. I'm confident that this webinar has produced wider awareness, although it has a greater challenge to ensure more participation from the palm oil producing countries. In conclusion, the GFP SPO can play a vital role in addressing the sustainability issues in the palm oil industry with early adoption, and it can be more robust, driving the producing nation and its supply chain actors across the globe. This framework eventually can address every sustainability issue and address the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals and encourage the development of own national standards like Mspo and Mspo over the time. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you, Pak.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Simon Servat.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have a question and response session for about 20 minutes. So please question be short and to whom the question be directed to. We invite everybody to share comments and or give questions. Please raise your hand or you can write in the chat facility. While waiting, probably I would like to, oh, that's Mr. Satinaka, please.
Terima kasih Pak Wicak. What I see now that if we do sustainable plantation, meaning it's a civilized plantation. And if you don't do that following the sustainability, this is a barbarian plantation. I don't know whether you agree with the statement. So the other country which not following the sustainability, they will be shamed and they will do their own work to follow the sustainability, if you agree. Okay, coming back now, ISPO is more advanced, as stated by Pak Herdrajat tadi. Since 2018, the transparency has become part of the ISPO. Yeah. Large company, which accounts for 59% of the Indonesian total of palm oil plantation, need not be doubted as they have expertise, they have funds, and can be inherent part of their business progress. But looking at the field of the oil palm plantation for the smallholders, the interest in sustainability work will be difficult to do with various incompetence. It's not they don't want to, but the key issue is that they don't know what and how to do. Now my question is, in this particular case, what participation can CPOPC do? Itu aja Pak. Jadi kontribusi apa yang bisa dilakukan CPOPC, mengajak negara juga supaya berpikir untuk melakukan ini nih. Terima kasih.
Pak Sahat, which person that you want to respond to your comments or question?
Well, I think Ziv already here quite sometimes. Might be he get an idea. Yeah, he was in Bapenas and have a look at this, knowing exactly what's in the field. Might be can give some keynotes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Sahat. Pak Ziv?
Yeah, let me just make sure I understand your question. So the problem is not that people do not want to be sustainable, is that one, they might not know how to do, and two, they might not have the resources to actually do it.
Correct.
So the question is, what can we do to help?
Correct.
I think this is exactly why elevating the discussion away from what traditionally has been a bit of a friction between certification schemes and, you know, who's right and who's wrong, to this common language around this is what we're trying to do, and potentially leveraging the UN as and some of their support as a way to actually leverage more resources and whatnot to the various developing to the producing countries which are also developing. I think that is one way to go. For me, I always, when I looked at this for the last few years, and anyone that I've had this discussion with, I strongly believe that there is a strong part of the market that is much more sustainable than we think it is, specifically, and many times with smallholders and whatnot, but they just, as you exactly mentioned, don't have the ability to show that they are sustainable because of lack of ability to engage with certification schemes and whatnot. If we collectively look at this common language as a way to maybe include them, right? This is why inclusiveness is important, by either leveraging the likes of resources through the Bapenas efforts or Malaysians efforts or other type of efforts to support the smallholders. I think that would be a good starting point. And that is one of the discussions that we're having in the annexes that we're hoping to further develop. Does that answer your question, Pak?
Well, part.
Okay. Okay, then you can discuss after this outside in the coffee shop probably. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I saw in the chat that question from Ziv from Chang Hai Teo. Is there a potential role for the UN Forum for Sustainability Standards, UNFSS, in the development of the proposed global framework, GFP SPO? What do you think?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Shall I answer? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
So I think that's, again, a great question. I mean, these are the questions that are exactly why CPOPC is leading the way with the global framework on principles, right? This first meeting and the seminar that was mentioned earlier, that is, you know, that hopefully will happen in a couple of weeks, is a way to create support to engage with the UN towards the middle / end of this year, as a way to engage with them both on how to start developing this conversation around the UN FSS. So yes, that is whether it's this one or the High Political Action Committee meeting that will happen later this year. These are a couple of the forums that we are considering as a way to make this message more salient, to broaden the message as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else to raise question? If not, oh, please raise your hand. Oh yes, Azman Abdul, please.
Azman Abdul from NASH, Malaysia. My question is directed to Mr. Zivrikovsky.
Yes.
Under your whatever you have discussed just now, do you? I'm trying to refer to inclusiveness of smallholders.
Yeah.
The thing is that at the moment, does the problem of agricultural input, which are now doubling up, can be what you call can be cover the problem, yeah? You know, to solve the problem of this agricultural input, which has been high right now.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa. I'm not sure we can have all answers today, but I can give you a bit of how I hope the framework can help support this, Pa. So ultimately, a lot of the problem and some of the agricultural innovation that I'm looking at is in the distribution supply chain and isn't also in the financing element. The biggest problem with smallholders, Pa, is that normally it's difficult to finance them, and normally it's difficult to serve them from an input perspective. That doesn't solve the commodity issue that is increasing the price of inputs. But I think by working with smallholders to reduce the cost of financing and the distribution costs to them, hopefully the cost of inputs for these smallholders will go down.
And you agree with that? Azman? Okay. Okay then. Ladies and gentlemen, I receive a direct message. The question is to Pak Herdrajat. I should mention this. There's two questions for Pak Herdrajat. The first one, considering that palm oil plantation in Indonesia are spread out and have a very large coverage, how can the stakeholder be able in establishing the global sustainability principles? That's the first one. And then second, what is the role of the business actors, in this case, palm planters, to make it happen? Time is yours, Pak Herdrajat. You have two questions to answer.
Okay, thank you very much for questions. I think palm oil production center in Indonesia located in 20 provinces. So in this case, governor, region, or major can act as advisor or major in implementation of global framework principle of sustainability palm oil. And then oil planters must be committed to implement principle and criteria of sustainability palm oil based on regulation. And then for the another question, Pak.
Oh yes, you answered the first one, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one is, what is the role of the business actors in this case?
Yes, the planters must be committed to implement principle and criteria of sustainable palm oil based on regulation, because there should be apply, yeah, and asking for certification to certification body for certification of Mspo. That is the rule, and this is based on the our regulation.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other raised question or comments?
Herdrajat.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
If planters do not obey the rule, what the sanction? Do the government stop the business or what? Otherwise, it won't work, you know.
Yes.
So I think it should be more stronger, not only regulation, but what's the sanction if they don't follow the rule? If it is implemented, I think that's one. Second, to involve the district or the province. They don't have budget for that. Nah, to do the thing, why not the government giving them every province producing oil palm products, they have a certain budget to monitor, to support, to develop, and other things, especially for sustainability. Saya kira itu Pak, jadi perlu dana, we need a budget for that. Terima kasih Pak.
Okay, Pak, thank you for your suggestion. According to the budget we sought from the APBN or APBD. Yeah, I think as mentioned by Pak Sahat, I think it is very important because if no budget, maybe without activity in the field. I agree with you, and I think for the future we will to make such activity to pursue this for in the field implementation of sustainable palm oil correctly.
Okay, thank you, Pak Derajat and Pak Sinaga. We can discuss it later. We have this question in chat. I will read it. Oftentimes, I'm asked, is RSPO held in higher esteem as compared to MSPO and ISPO? Can a panelist provide enlightenment on this? Well, I just little bit comments that actually Pak Derajat and Pak Asif is verbosely present this, but of yours, some of you probably can answer this, Pak Derajat, Pak Asif, or probably also Mr. Simon. Pak Asif, you want to answer this?
Yeah, I will start, but I would really appreciate if Pak Simon and others also add from their knowledge, because I have a very specific view, right? From my experience, RSPO is often held in a bit of higher esteem, partly because it is better aligned with consumers, and so it allows the consumer side, and specifically in times the West, to take what's called a bit of the higher ground, the higher moral ground as such, right? That then they also suggest at times in discussions that RSPO is unaligned with a specific country, so therefore it's quote unquote more neutral in its approach and such. So I think those two elements are ones that are that is why RSPO is held in some higher esteem. But whenever you look at the real differences, you really don't find a really big difference between the certification schemes when you come to this. So at least that is what I've seen so far, but we love other perspectives as well.
Thank you, Pak Simon. I think you have chance to answer this from Pak Prabha Nayar, that us comparing between RSPO to MSPO.
Yes, Pak. I think RSPO has started early. They have much more earlier scheme, which they have come out with the generic principles and also national interpreted principles as well. So that probably can show as an esteem compared to any other sustainable schemes. So, but I would say that, compared to RSPO, MSPO, and ISPO. MSPO and ISPO is going to be the latest version, which there's a lot of improvement will be made, and of course it will be better. And it's government driven. MSPO and ISPO is the national, the government initiative. So I think that will eventually give much more control in terms of controlling the implementing the sustainability according to the standard. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the chat again from Mr. Kulbir Mehta, I will read it for you. Global frameworks have practical challenges as it will come on the way of national sovereignty. Where does GFP SPO plan to start from? I think this is a question from Pak Sif. Go on, Pak Sif.
So first of all, I think that is completely right, and one of the key discussions that we had with CPOPC while creating this is to respect the national sovereignty of the producing countries, because that is important, paramount importance, in fact. And this is why we are so excited that we have great support from already from Malaysia and Indonesia, as was articulated today by the minister from MPIC, as well as Ibu Mustalifa as well. So I think those are a good starting point. So we would have not, in CPOPC, and again, I'm speaking a bit on behalf of CPOPC, I guess, here as thing, but we would have not gone forward with this had we not had the support. What we now hope to do is to have this as a discussion point. As we mentioned earlier, this is not constrained the other producing country. This is a way to start dialogue based on our experience and based on the ability to connect this to the SDGs. And therefore the way, so started with Malaysia and Indonesia supporting as such, as see here, and continuing on with working with the other producing countries to ensure that this framework does fit very well with their national sovereignty.
Okay, that's it. We still have another 3 minutes to have a question and answers. Anybody wants to say something? Well, Pak Dubito, I'm agree with you. Actually, we have questions for you. So I think it's better if I read it for you. So the question, so I'm sorry that although Pak Dubito is not the presenter, but it's like it's better if we get answers from Pak Dubito. Is that right, Pak Dubito?
Actually, I have a question for
okay, yes.
Actually. Thank you, Pak Wicak. I think we can discuss it later. But thank you for the opportunity. Actually, you know, we are very pleased to see that many you know, representatives from oil producing countries present and attend this webinar. So my question to Ziv perhaps is that what is the key messages you would like to deliver to our friends from palm oil producing countries, if we'd like to, you know, to make this global framework be known and supported globally? I think there was a suggestion by, you know, one of the participants, Shanghai, about, you know, on how we can, you know, utilize, you know, relevant forums such as the UN Forum for Sustainability Standard. Thank you, Pak Wicak.
Yes, Asif, please.
So thank you, Pak Dubito, for this great guidance. I think, as I mentioned earlier, this is a starting point. So now that we have presented it, what we really hope to do next is to engage with the different producing countries with any questions they have or support. And the hope is that they can support this framework as we go and have this discussion with the UN. Obviously, what we want this to be is a multi-country approach, the same as the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries. It's not, you know, country or two countries and such. And so this is what we are trying to create. Now, we fully well know that this is, again, a starting point. So the discussion starts here. This is not, as far as I understand, a decision meeting so much as a way to present and, you know, get these questions and continue the discussion.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, we ran out of time for question and response. So I think it's better if we now end this webinar. So I would like to invite Mr. Dubito Simamora, the Deputy Executive Director of CPOPC, for the closing remarks. Thank you. Time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Wicak. Thank you for all the speakers, especially Ziv, and also, of course, Pak Rajat and also Simon. But I think we listened very carefully to the statements and also the very good suggestion and recommendations from our two SOM leaders, Ibu Dr. Mustalifa and also Datu Rafi Utaya. All I can say, Pak Wicak, I think you know, this framework has been developed for quite some time, but I think this is the first official introduction of the concept after it was approved by our ministers in the last ministerial meeting last December. I think much has been said about this chartered mandated task for CPOPC to develop this framework. But I think, again, this is a strong commitment to ensure that the palm oil industry is cultivated, is produced in a sustainable way in the whole supply chain, of course. But I think, you know, this regardless of the critics against palm oil, I think we don't have any single doubt that palm oil is leading the whole vegetable oils in sustainable standards, both voluntary schemes like has been explained, and also mandatory ones like Mspo and Mspo. So I believe that palm oil leads by example, but I think there is much more to that. I think this framework is also a reminder to all other producers of vegetable oils that they have the same responsibility, they have the same accountability. So I think one particular word I would like to underline from the statements and also the presentations: this is not a race, this is not a competition, but it's a collaboration, this is partnership. I think it's also embodied in the global framework that we just discussed. So I believe it is good for palm oil, led by CPOPC, to continue lead the way when it comes to developing or improving sustainability standard. So perhaps the remaining questions for us, like also I think raised by one of the participants, what is the next step forward? I think we understand that there will be another webinar on this, where we can hear and listen to the views of the relevant UN system. We'd like to have, of course, the participation of UN SCAP and also UNDP perhaps in Indonesia, and a reputable organization like Solidaridad, and because they have been doing this sustainability project for some time, down to the ground in many producing countries, not only in palm oil but also other commodities. So now the question is that I think Jeff mentioned also, and also Bu Musdalifah, and to some extent Pak Rafi mentioned about the possibility of us, trying to have the support of the international community at the UN level. But now I think the main issue for us on how we get the support of all palm oil producing countries. Without the support of palm oil producing countries, then it will be difficult for us to showcase this I think significant achievement in our sustainability journey in the UN system. Let us say in July, through the high-level political framework under the ECOSOC, where we can review the progress made in achieving SDGs. I'm also happy to note with Jack, I think about the principle 7 when we talk about continuous improvement. And I think when we try to develop this framework, one question that came to our mind was, what will happen after SDGs? Of course, we understand that SDGs are perfected from MDGs, and then after 2030, there should be another sustainable development framework agreed by the UN. So I think this is also a good way forward, a good strategy for us to say that palm oil producing countries will continue to improve the sustainability practice all along. Last point perhaps from me is that we understand that Indonesia at the moment is the president of the G20, and of course if we look at the membership of G20, we have there not only the main producer of palm oil, but also the main consumers such as India, China, and of course the EU. My question to all colleagues, and I think this can be addressed in the second webinar: what can we really do, as producing countries to I think connect the interests of palm oil producing countries with the G20 presidency of Indonesia. So with that kind of notes, Pak Wicak, I think all I should say, this has been a very successful webinar, the first introduction of the global framework, but we'll not stop here because we need to pursue follow-up actions in the future, and of course, the support of all stakeholders from the 2 member countries, from all palm oil producing countries, is dispensable if you would like to succeed with this important project. So thank you again to all the speakers, to all participants, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Dubito. That's a very conclusive closing remarks. Thank you once again. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, this first webinar is well done and time is up. On the behalf of CPOPC, we would like to thank to all of you, the honorable guests for direction and recommendation, the speakers for good presentation, and all participants for your participation and brightening the webinars. Once again, thank you very much. Salam, have a good day. Bye-bye.